Rare historical photos that redefine the past. Janie and Mickey dressed up as Tarzan and Jane at a Halloween party, 1956. The 19th century was a time of great change in Latin America. Increased contact with Europe brought growth and innovation to its cities, as well as increased competition for its resources, which often culminated in skirmishes and wars. 1860. A Lady and Her Litter Bearers, Brazil. Slavery lasted for 300 years in Brazil, with over 4 million Africans imported into the country during that time. It was also the last place in the Americas to abolish slavery in 1888, so the final years of the practice were captured on film. View of Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, 1860, surrounded by otherworldly granite monoliths and sparkling under the Brazilian sun, Rio de Janeiro's stunning harbor is rightly regarded as one of the 7 wonders of the natural world. Its beauty is apparent in this photo, taken around 1860, looking out across Flamengo towards Sugarloaf Mountain. 1865, crushing mill at El Nopal, silver mine, Mexico. The so-called New World was a treasure trove for the European nations that colonized it, not just thanks to the ancient artifacts they plundered, but also to the rich resources they could extract too. Here we see workers in the crushing mill at the El Nopal silver mine in Guanajuato, Mexico. 1868. A tsunami wipes out Arica in modern-day Chile. On August 13, 1868, the flourishing town of Arica, then in Peru but now in Chile, was hit by one of the most powerful earthquakes in history. Some modern estimates suggest that the megaquake measured 9.0 on the Richter scale, but it was the approximately 50-foot-high waves of the subsequent tsunami that wiped Arica off the map. 1868, and devastates Arequipa in Peru too. The Arica earthquake was so powerful that most of the towns in southern Peru were almost completely destroyed. Here we see a tent city set up among the devastated buildings around the main square of Arequipa, a mountain town some 164 miles north of Arica that's now Peru's second largest city. 1870. Climbing Popocatépetl volcano, Mexico. Popocatépetl means smoking mountain in the Aztec language, and at 17,930 feet is the second highest mountain in Mexico and the 5th highest in North America. Seismic rumbles saw the mountain closed to climbers in 1994, a decision vindicated by a spectacular eruption in 2000, the biggest in more than 1,000 years. 1870. Darien Expedition, Panama. The Darien Gap is a sparsely inhabited, almost impenetrable isthmus in Panama that connects Central America to South America. Many have tried to tame it, and all have failed miserably. In 1698, banker William Patterson tried to colonize the area for Scotland, an endeavor that cost more than 2,000 lives and almost bankrupted the Scottish economy. 1873. Street scene, Cartagena, Colombia. Founded by the Spanish in 1553, the northern Caribbean port of Cartagena was where Spanish ships loaded up the treasures they'd plundered from the New World to take back to Spain. By the 1840s, the port had declined, but its proximity to the Darien Gap meant that it continued to be an important jumping-off point for expeditions to that untamed isthmus that separated Colombia from Panama. In fact, this photo was taken by the United States Darien Exploring Expedition when they passed through the port sometime in 1873. 1875. Coffee harvesting in Las Nubes, Guatemala. Coffee as an export crop came late to Guatemala, and by the time it did in the mid-19th century, European tastes were demanding higher quality beans. Harvesting such beans was a long and laborious process, and was resisted by the local indigenous workforce. 1883. Market at Quetzaltenango, Guatemala. By the tail end of the 19th century, the mighty cathedrals and town squares built by the Spanish had become the centers of Latin American life, especially in mountain towns. 1884. Military parade in Valparaiso, Chile. The War of the Pacific between 1879 and 1884 saw Chile battle Bolivia and Peru over disputed territory along South America's Pacific coast, including parts of the mineral-rich Atacama Desert. By 1885, Alfred Maudslay was conducting excavations at the Maya ruins of Copan in Honduras, and here we see him posing beside a stela in the Great Plaza. Circa 1890, Brazil's first tourist railway, Corcovado, is a 2,310-foot-high granite peak in Rio de Janeiro, famously topped by the world-renowned statue of Christ the Redeemer. Should you visit, you may very well catch the Corcovado Rack Railway, seen here just a few years after it opened, to the top. 1891. Western Court and Tower at Palenque, Mexico. Maudslay used these squeezes to create plaster casts of the monuments and their inscriptions. Here we see Maudslay in a tower at Palenque looking out across the Western Court, which was covered with intricate hieroglyphics. 1895. Exploring the Santo Anastácio River, Brazil. The first European to explore the Amazon River was a Spanish soldier called Francisco de Orellana. His 1541 journey saw his men battle tribes of female warriors, according to their accounts, whom he compared to the Amazons of Greek mythology. 1896. French workers attempting to build the Panama Canal. It was the Americans who completed the Panama Canal in 1914 to great fanfare. But it was the French who envisaged and began this monumental engineering project in 1881. 1900. Incan Wall in Cusco, Peru. At the turn of the century, Latin America continued to be a place where the ancient and modern worlds uneasily coexisted. Here we see a German scientist in Cusco, applying typical precision to the task of moving an Inca wall. Each stone is carefully numbered so that it could be reassembled accurately elsewhere.